The Joker build. The build for brainwashing your enemies to do your bidding, subjugating innocent civilians, leaving a few nasty surprises behind, and having a good laugh. For this setup, I'm going to be focusing on skills for dominating cops, converting them using Joker, and making the most out of these guys with health regeneration. We'll be picking up some C4 skills too, as well as a splash of dodge and melee skills. Now let's see what kind of skills we'll be picking up for this build. At the core of it, we're going to have most of the skills in the Controller subtree in Mastermind, as well as the Breacher subtree in Technician. In Mastermind, I have picked up Forced Friendship, Joker, Confident, Partners in Crime, Stockholm Syndrome, and Hostage Taker Aced. And in Technician, I have Hardware Expert, Drill Sergeant, Combat Engineering, More Firepower, and Fire Trap all aced. Now that's pretty much my main focus, hostages as well as C4s. For the rest of the skills, I've mainly picked up stuff to better my survivability, and a few extra things here and there. I decided to make my build a bit more old school, rocking the lightweight ballistic vest. So as such, I've got a few of the dodge ghost skills, like duck and cover, parkour, and inner pockets aced. I also have sneaky bastard basic. In fugitive, I've picked up the melee skills, martial arts, and pumping iron aced. Technician, I have steady grip basic, and in enforcer, I have resilience aced and transporter basic. Now, unfortunately, another nice skill for this setup would have been Die Hard aced, but I didn't have enough points left to pick that up, but it could be easily taken if you just traded a few melee skills for it. But for the sake of the build, I'm just going to be keeping the melee stuff. Now for my perk deck, I am using the Crook perk deck. Let's take a look at what kind of weapons we'll be using. We're going to focus on weapons that have good concealment, but still work well without needing many weapon proficiency skills. For my primary, I'm going to be using the Cavity 9mm with the Ported Compensator and the Appellation Foregrip. For my secondary, I'm going to be using the Bronco 44 Revolver with the Ergo Wooden Grip and the Slimline Body. Now for the rest of the equipment, I'm going to be using the Winged Butterfly Knife, Ace of Spades Throwable, C4 equipment, and the Lightweight Ballistic Vest Armor. Ever since the skill revamp came along, I feel like one of the most powerful setups in any build is having Jokers paired with Hostage Taker. In the past, this combo wasn't as great since it was a pretty heavy point investment in Mastermind for what was, in my opinion, a marginal benefit. Regenerating health when you have hostages is a pretty sweet idea, but babysitting civilians isn't exactly fun and not every map has them to begin with. So, in essence, you're forced to rely on dominating cops and converting them to proc hostage taker instead. However, it wasn't exactly the easiest thing keeping a hostage or a converted alive at all times, and unless you had one of those, you wouldn't be able to regenerate health. Not only that, but with the increase in the perk decks that regenerate health for you, it seems like this combination is pretty moot. However, now with the Confident skill, which allows you to have 2 converted cops at a time, I find this skill setup to be a lot easier to use. By having 2 converteds as well as 2 dominated cops you can control at a time, as long as you're actively replacing converteds and dominants that die, you'll always have a pretty steady stream of health regeneration from Hostage Taker. Before, it was more difficult to upkeep this status because you were limited to 1 Jokered cop at a time. So, both dominated cops and Jokered cops will proc health regeneration, but dominated cops can easily be freed or killed, and generally a converted cop, when you have all of the related skills, usually lasts longer. So, in the past you could have 1 dominated cop and 1 Jokered cop, meaning just 1 fallback if you lost someone, but now you can have 2 dominateds and 2 Jokers, meaning you have 3 fallbacks instead of 1. This alone makes it a lot easier to make sure you have the conditions filled for Hostage Taker to work. Not only that, but with Stockholm Syndrome, now hostages that are freed, they won't run off. So as long as you don't kill them yourself, and you still have cable ties, you can continue to keep tying them down, and they'll count as hostages. Honestly, by using the Controller subtree of Mastermind, you open up so many options for yourself in terms of survivability. Health regenerating perk decks are generally considered to be the more useful and beneficial perk decks in comparison to, well, the other perk decks available. However, with this setup, it opens up so many combinations with the perk decks, like bringing straight armor perk decks, dodge only perk decks like I have right now, or team-oriented perk decks like Crew Chief or Maniac. While so far I've been mostly talking about the Controller subtree's usefulness through regeneration, the converted cops themselves are fairly useful assets to have in a firefight. They function just like a friendly AI would, and essentially they serve the same purpose as well. not supremely combat oriented, and they have no ability to help you complete objectives, but they're damn good bullet sponges, and with both Joker and partner in crime Ace, they're quite tanky. This becomes especially handy when you're in large firefights, and they help take aggro off you, meaning less enemies potentially shooting you or your teammates. It's great for when a bulldozer comes around and decides to aim at his fellow cop buddy rather than you, giving you the green light to go crazy. Now for this build, I'm using it with a dodge-oriented setup, banking on a little extra help from Sneaky Bastard while running with my lightweight ballistic vest and crook. From the dodge and vest armor skills I picked up, I have a little over 80 armor and 39 dodge. Had I reached 5 visibility in the setup, I would have got the full 40 dodge, but I ain't really gonna sweat it that much. After the skill revamp went live, a lot of stuff was changed outside of the skills, like weapons, enemies, the armor you can use, and more specifically, the ballistic vests. They ended up getting a boost to their dodge now, so things like the lightweight ballistic vest actually stand up well against suit dodge. If not better, because of the armor it also has. When I said I wanted to go old school, I used to use the lightweight ballistic vest all the time before things like perk decks were introduced because, well, personally I thought that it looked more aesthetically pleasing than just the suit. However, using a lightweight ballistic vest tends to put a damper on any concealment builds you're making that go with dodge or crits, because the concealment loss going from a suit to the lightweight ballistic vest actually makes quite a big difference if you're not careful with how you've modded your guns. However, with the new skill that gives concealment for ballistic vests, inner pockets, it makes it so that the lightweight ballistic vest has the same concealment as if you were wearing the suit. I really love this skill. It helps immensely when I use this armor, but I still want the extra dodge or crits from the skills. The skill for giving silenced weapons better concealment too also makes it incredibly handy for any silent killer builds, but that's for another build in the near future. Anyway, for the weapons, I had to go with some of the stuff that had good concealment if I wanted to get close to 5 visibility. The Cavity and the Bronco do just fine with that. These are also weapons that don't really need any skills to be useful, so they're the perfect choice to go with a build like this. Plus, the Joker always has that joke revolver on him, but it's a shame that I can't shoot out flags that say bang. The weapons, pretty straightforward. Got the throwing card throwables, because that's exactly what the Joker would use, but honestly, throwing cards are really bad as throwables. I really have no use for them other than using them to help me try and dominate someone. Same goes for the knife and the melee skills. They're more or less hand in hand with the character, but as for actual usefulness, most knives aren't worth using unless you got something that deals a lot more damage, or you're using one of those melees that have super fast swing speed, like the toothbrush. Now, for equipment, I was thinking to myself, what would be something that the Joker uses? And the Fire Trap C4s seemed perfect for him. A big surprise for any poor soul that walks into them, leaving behind a nasty trap of fire too. I figured this was a good time to give them a test since I haven't actually had the opportunity to use them that much in beta. I really like the changes to the C4 in the skill revamp. Now you have regular trip mines and shape charges. They're completely separate. You can have 14 trip mines and 6 shape charges, just like before. Unfortunately, you can't use shape charges as trip mines, but now you get a hefty number of them, so I guess it really isn't that big of a deal. Same as before, upgraded mines can do some hefty damage, and they've got a pretty large radius. But with the Fire Trap skill, mines are now upgraded to be able to explode into flames, which covers a pretty sizable area and lasts for a fairly long time. Not only that, but the fire deals some crazy damage too. After burning myself a few times, I think it does similar damage as a Molotov. Most anything that hasn't died from the explosion that walks into the fire will usually end up dying. And if they don't die, they'll get stunned, like if a bulldozer or a special walks into it, they just won't be able to do anything. These mines make the perfect area of denial tool. Need a protected drill? Plop one down next to it. Pretty common choke point where hordes of cops swarm through? Place a mine. After using it for a bit, I would advise against placing the mines against the wall though. Doing so usually makes it a lot easier for enemies to walk into them, but it also usually puts the fire trap on the wall instead of the ground, so you end up losing half of the effective range of the fire. It's really up to you. Mines are a little bit fickle. Take, for example, trying to kill a bulldozer. If a bulldozer walks into a mine you prepared, it pretty much always dies unless something funky happened. But if you place a mine at the feet of a dozer and you manually detonate the mine by shooting at it, it's not uncommon for the bulldozer to survive the explosion, even if the mine was incredibly close to him. In any case, for me, I usually put the mine on the ground in the area I want to protect, and shoot at it instead, since I find the area of denial fire trap a lot more useful than the explosion itself, so I try to maximize its usefulness in that manner. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've done a build based on the character, and, well, for the Joker in particular, due to how crazy and kooky he is, this build is pretty nonsensical. In fact, this build does not synergize well together. The fire trap C4s kill my Joker units constantly. Either the explosion or they just walk into the fire and burn to death. And since the AI in this game aren't really known for being terribly great, it really doesn't make sense to run this combination of skills. But I guess in itself, that's very Joker-like. It's quite quintessential of the Joker to be able to coerce cops to do his bidding, and the surprise fire trap C4s being completely indiscriminate to the people it kills, whether it be cops, civilians, teammates, hell, even you. It sounds like the perfect match for the comedic death and destruction for everyone.